welcome to my logo design course for beginners. I'm sure a lot of you might have a side project or a new startup or even a blog or a newsletter that needs a logo. And a lot of people starting to use things like those logo builders or logo creators, and they're great for a lot of things, but they're never quite as good as creating your own logo design. Obviously, it's quite a daunting task, and creating a logo feels like something that you might need a branding designer for or an experienced sort of designer. And often these guys are fantastic and they do create incredibly beautiful pieces of design and branding work. But for a lot of you who want to be able to do it yourself or to save money, this course is really designed just to help you create something that is a lot better than anything you can get pre-made, but also means you can do it pretty much for free or only for a few dollars at most. So we're going to show you basically how to go through these stages of using iconography to kind of form your core logo mark, and then how to choose brands like branded fonts and also colors to kind of create a really nice looking kind of brand image. So just to jump in now, I'm going to show you kind of the end result of where we're going to go. So you can see here we have an initial kind of logo mark. I'll show you how to do this, but this came from Noun Project. It cost me $3 to purchase, and now I can use it for anything I want. We then kind of look at how to customize this. So customizing it something a bit more branded. So you can see I've added a bit more kind of input and a bit more texture here and a bit more information, trying to make it a bit more interesting. And then finally going towards a kind of colored branded font with a nice kind of experience here to try and really make a very well-rounded brand. And for my example, I'm using this idea of a product called Pigeon, which is a side project of mine, which is a newsletter app. So that's why I kind of hinted towards a newsletter email inbox in the pigeon's wings. So to get started, I want to give you a quick intro into Figma. So if you haven't downloaded Figma already, please do download it. There'll be a link below how to do that. It's a completely free to use tool. So if you haven't done it, just pause the video now and then resume once you finish downloading it and setting an account. But if you already have it, we're going to jump in. I'm just going to give you a few very high level tips on how to use Figma initially. So I'm just going to create a new window here, like a brand new template. So I'm starting from scratch. Some of the main things I want to kind of walk you through initially, just the overall interface. So on the left-hand side, we have layers. When you start creating new assets and new images and shapes, they'll appear on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side over here, we have basically all your input. So changing the color, changing the line thickness and things like that. At the top, we have your control, so you can choose between moving things and scaling here. We have frames, we'll come to in a second. Basic shapes, so rectangles, lines, arrows, etc. A pen tool, which is kind of for creating custom lines and different shapes. Text, obviously text. This is kind of to move around the screen by dragging. We won't use that too much probably. And then also comments if you want to share it with someone else. So to begin with, I kind of want to walk you through a few things. Doing a frame is basically a great place to start. If you're doing an app design or something, they have pre-made sizes here. So you want to create an app mock-up for an iPhone 11 Pro, you can click that and it creates a frame in the perfect resolution of that. But for our case of doing a logo design, we just want to start off with something kind of square and ready to go for kind of branding. So I'm just going to click and drag to kind of make a frame. I'm going to just select this and then make sure my frame width and height is 1,000 pixels. I'm just going to click here and type in 1,000. And then again over here, just make sure I have a nice kind of place to start working in. So that's basically a frame. Shapes are kind of quite self-explanatory. I can click here, I can create a rectangle, and then I can click on it again. I can resize it. I can round the corners by clicking on the side here to kind of change the angle of those. And then now you can see on the right-hand side, I have the options to change the fill color. So I can then just move this around in a standard gradient here, change it to pretty much whatever I want. And then we're looking at a few other things we can do, so effects. So this allows you to add things like drop shadow. What you can do here is change them if it's a blur or a drop shadow, for instance. And then you can change the effect settings by clicking on the button here. And then you can change the size and the spread of this. So spread is how much blur there is almost, so how wide it goes. So I can type in 50 here, makes it very, very large, or just 20. And then X and Y is an offset here. And then the blur is how much it's going to be blurred. So you can kind of play around with these things yourself to kind of see how they work and how they do it. But yeah, effectively that's where all your effects go. Other than that, we're going to be looking at kind of other shapes as well, probably using things like ellipses, which again is very similar. You can do things like when you're creating a new shape, you can press shift to lock dimensions, so it stops you from making things off. So you press and hold shift, it kind of locks it to 1-to-1 proportions. And then the other kind of thing we're going to be using is text. So when you click on the text, it allows you to kind of either you click and start writing, or you kind of click and drag to make a text box. A lot of the time for this, we're going to be just clicking a single time, and then this is going to be like where you can type in like your brand name here. And a few things you might notice when you try and resize this, it just changes the field size, doesn't change the font sizing. So what you can do here is switch to the scaling, and then that means when you resize it, it will actually resize the whole thing here. So obviously that's a very, very like high level run through. There's a link below this video on like a beginner's guide to Figma, which goes into a lot more detail, but wanted to show you some like very high level steps of kind of like how to do this. So for branding wise, I'm just going to delete all this and just to start again. My way of going about it is to kind of, you start off with your name, which will hopefully have some sort of hint towards something. So obviously for me, my product's called Pigeon, so I'm going to look at kind of a pigeon-based logo. If you're looking for something like an email kind of app, you could look for like the standard emails kind of iconography. But the best place to do is to start on something like Noun Project. So I really, really like Noun Project. It basically is a very cheap and affordable way to kind of purchase icons. And this is a great place to basically start off your branding. So for instance, here I can just go in and type in pigeon. And what it will do, it will give me like a lot of different icons around pigeons, shapes. So I can keep looking through these and find some that I find interesting. So for instance, maybe this one kind of looks quite cool. And what I can do is I can download this. So eventually when we choose our final one, we will basically be doing a pro download and paying $2.99 to get like a royalty-free license. But in the meantime, we can just download them like a basic download, and then we can kind of play around with things to see what we like. So if I just do basic download, click continue, I want to download it as a SVG, and this will allow me to kind of like customize it, and it gives us it's like a vector, so it means it doesn't get pixelated when you scale. So I'm just going to click that, which will then download it. So then what I can do is just go to my downloads folder, which is here, and I can then just drag this straight into Figma. So you can see here I have the little bit of the text at the bottom down here, so I can just ungroup this. So you can do this by doing keyboard shortcuts as well, and then I can delete that text. Obviously, when we actually want to use it for like our own website, we'll have to pay for it, and that kind of is one of the parts of like how the licensing works. But initially I can go through, I can find some more kind of styles I like, and see if there's any other ones. So I quite like this one, which is obviously the one I actually ended up using. And because I've already purchased this one, I can download it again for free. But if I want to choose some other ones to kind of show examples, so maybe I could do like a kind of face-on approach here. And then I can, oops, that is not the right one. So I can just do this and go back to basic download. Here we go. And then I can download that one again. And then now I can just add both of these as well. So here you can see it's quite easy to get started with these ones here. Again, I just want to ungroup these to make sure I just have the assets, and then delete that, and then group these ones. So now I kind of got a few different starting points here. Once you kind of have selected which one you like, what you can do then is you can go ahead and purchase it. So basically the way you do that is you go to the pro download, you just do a single icon, and then you can then basically select to pay that here, and then you can download it and you can use it for whatever you want. So that's really phase one, is kind of just choosing what you want as your kind of icon. The next stage is going to be kind of customizing it. So when we look at this icon here, the one I kind of ended up selecting, the first thing I did was actually mirrored it from left to right. I just felt like it looked a bit more natural. So if I go to object here, I can then just do flip horizontal, and then it makes it over that way. And then because my brand's a email inbox, I wanted to kind of customize a little bit further, and actually kind of give the wing a bit of a feel of like a kind of a newsletter kind of shape almost. So when you're kind of customizing these, you can basically double click, and what it does, it opens up all of the points, which are basically how you manipulate the vector. So you can see here now I can kind of start changing the shape of this. And then what I'm going to do is add a few more points. So when you hover over between parts of a line, you get a new way of adding one. So I can then I can then add a new point here, and I should be able to select that and then move it. So I'm going to add a few more of those here as well, just to kind of start making that kind of feeling of a email, so kind of like the email icon. Sometimes it is a bit fiddly, so you can see I'm struggling to kind of move these, and that does happen. There we go. And another one here. And you can see what it will do, it will start to like snap. So you can see that red line indicates that it's in line with that one there. And then again here, I'm going to do the same thing just to make sure it is lined up. Come on. There we go. And then I'm just going to make sure these meet up to the end here. Cool. So when I hit escape, we should have like a very first kind of draft of that. Obviously these like aren't perfect, so what I will then do is just start to kind of make sure I line things up a bit better, make sure everything looks kind of even. But that's basically the very easy way of starting to like manipulate the icons you've already downloaded and to kind of customize them a little bit further. The next thing to do is obviously when you have a logo like this or an icon, it doesn't really look that great kind of standalone. So what I'm going to do is just copy this. So if you press Alt on the keyboard, you can copy it across. I want to kind of give it like a background shape. So I'm just going to use oval for that. So you can use a keyboard shortcut for O, or you can go up here and select like ellipse. And then I can press Shift to make sure I'm kind of making it in a perfect circle. And then if you can't see it, because it's on top of it, so you can right click and then kind of go back to center back here. And then I have my shape on top of it. So obviously you want this to kind of be cut out. So you can use this tool where you press, you select both of these objects here, and then you go up to this menu up here and you have a way to kind of like extract. It's basically like a stamp, so it cuts through it. So if I hit exclude now, what I've got is this a single shape now, which means if, for instance, I'm putting this on like a different object in the background or a different color, it will show through. So it means when you're putting on different colors, it will always show it like this here. So yeah, so now you've got like a basic kind of logo. I've got this all ready to go. I can then start changing the colors. But before we do that, I kind of want to look at kind of font choices or type choices of how we can do that. So what I'm going to do now is show you how to use Google Fonts, which are totally free to use, and also they're already embedded in Figma, which is a great place to start. But the first thing I'm going to do is just create another frame here. So do is I just press Alt and Shift to kind of drag it across. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller, and then I'm just going to type my brand name, so Pigeon. Obviously that looks tiny, so I'm just going to go to the scale up here. I can zoom in, and then I can just make this a lot bigger. So obviously this has gone just straight to like a Helvetica, and I think choosing a font is, again, like we're using Google Fonts here, which is completely free to use. And we can just go to fonts.google.com, and this will show you everything. There's like an overwhelming amount. There's like currently 1,017 families, so it's kind of hard to choose like which ones to go for. So what we're going to do instead is go to, there are various ways that are kind of like curated patterns of these. So there's font pair, which is great because it gives you not only like heading fonts that work with different body text. This is great for like building websites to kind of see what things could look good. Or there's also a link here, which is kind of just some curated fonts from InVision. So I'll link to a few articles below of different types here. And what's great is I just kind of quickly skim through and see these. I'm going to pick a few just to kind of show what they look like. So I'm going to probably, so let's use, okay, so I'm going to use Oswald as one of these. So on the right hand side here, I can go in and just type in Oswald and it will auto find it for me. That's kind of interesting. And then I can change the weight, which is like how thick it is. So if I go like very, very heavy, it goes like very fat. Extra light is very, very thin. So I'm gonna go something like medium here. The other one I liked was Poppins as well, which is actually the one I ended up choosing anyway. So I can go Poppins here. You can see that it's got a bit funny, so I can just make this text box wider to make sure it all holds in place. And then one final one, let's go something a little bit different to kind of see how this looks. Maybe Carla could be interesting as well. So these are kind of some like basic font choices here. Again, I could go to some other websites and find some inspiration around these. So there I could go some like very interesting one like BioRhyme, which is kind of a very different style font here. Right, there we go. But effectively what we have now is like some basic logo, kind of like text choices here. The one I personally think works really well, because obviously you've got quite like a well-balanced, quite bold kind of logo mark here is Pigeon, this central one here, sorry, not Pigeon, Poppins. So I can then just delete the rest of these ones here. And I can now put this one here. So I think semi-bold is probably about right, maybe bold actually, I kind of like a bit more, so I'm going to go bold. And then just to make things easy to line up, you want to like right click on this, and then you want to go to outline stroke, and this basically makes it not editable anymore. So often what I do before completely changing something is just make a copy up here and then make this one into outline. So now this is basically very similar structure to how this works. If I wanted to, I could actually go in and start like playing around with the font and changing the shape, which I'm not going to do this time. So yeah, so now you kind of have these basic choices here around like a logo next to this. If you want to align something, you can just press Shift, select both of them, and then the top right hand side over here you have a line. What's interesting with the way like text works is sometimes you don't want it lined mathematically perfectly central, so you actually want to do it by eyes. I'm just going to move it down a little bit, so I'm just using the arrow keys here to move it slightly. And then I'm just going to change the spacing to make it stand a bit separate as well. Cool. Okay, so now the final thing for us to do is to start looking at colors. Colors are really hard to get right, and there's this whole about color theory. So it's around like reds kind of being quite aggressive and quite bold, blues being more friendly, yellows being positive, and then you can kind of Google about that as well. And there's lots of different theories around that, so you can kind of communicate what you want to do. But my kind of favorite way of doing things is by going to Dribbble, which is basically a kind of a website where people share. It's like Instagram, but for designers. And I often just go into here, I go to like branding, I'll then filter, and I will sort these by popularity. And then I will make sure I'm looking, time frame is like the past kind of month. And then this gives you some like really, obviously very, very beautiful kind of designs. And often what you can do now is you can just kind of like basically use the colors. Obviously colors aren't copyrighted most of the time. So I can just click in here. I can then, what's great in Dribbble is you can actually hover over here and it'll show you the colors. So if I click on this one, it shows me what you call the hex code. So if I click that, what it's going to do is search for everything in that color. But what I can actually do is just copy this like little code here. I can then go back to Figma. I can then just click here and paste it, and that will give me that exact color for the one I just looked at online. So now what I can do is just do a few quick different mock-ups here of colors. So I can just choose some. So I'm just going to go back and maybe choose a slightly different color, because the green is quite cool, but maybe this purple one is quite interesting as well. So I want that purple here. So I'm just going to click that, and again, just copy that code, put that one in here. And then finally, I'm going to choose like an orangey one, which is one of the ones I ended up choosing. So I'm just going to keep going around. Maybe this one here is quite cool. So I can't select a color from that one, that's fine. So let's just go for this one here. Cool, so that's got that kind of like pinky orange, is quite a cool color. And then I can just select that one here. So now I've got all my colors. I kind of think the one that I personally prefer the most is this orange one, so I can then move these ones out here. And then the final thing we can do is just getting this ready to work on different things. So right now this is like a colored one. You obviously want like an all black one. You also want a white one as well, so you can kind of put it in different colors and different things. So the best way of doing this is we can now basically group these ones here. and then I'm just going to move it out of the frame actually, and I'm just going to duplicate these a few times, and then I'm going to make this one is going to be my all white one, and then this one is going to be my all black one here. So now I've kind of got different use cases here as well. And then for things like social media, you might want to kind of style them a bit differently again. So one good thing is social media, obviously it's in a square. So what you can do is you can either just like take this one part of it and then put it into, where's the middle? There we go. Into the middle of that one there, and that kind of gives you like a nice social media image. But yeah, for these ones, the way we're going to do these now is we're going to select all of them, and then on the right hand side down here we have export. So I'm just going to create this, and then we want to export these as PNG so we can have a transparent background. And then we want to, here you can select like the width of these. So I want to export these as 1000 pixels. So I'm just going to type in 1000 px. Actually, sorry, I forget you can't do that. So you have to do the width. So we're going to do 1000W, and that sets the width to 1000. And then when I click export 3 layers, I can then save these to my downloads here, and that should export. And then I can go to my downloads folder, and here I have my logos. So I have this one with the transparent background colored, one with white, and one with black. So for things like social media, obviously you can do the same thing. You can just export these again. You can select whatever width you want. So maybe you want to do these for the website for just like 500 width, and I can export that. And yeah, that is pretty much how you create a very basic, like a very simple logo that you have customized to a point. It is one of like the quickest ways of doing things. You can see it only took a few steps to kind of go through this whole process. But yeah, just follow kind of these guides. Take this as like a start point, and obviously when you come from like Noun Project, it's a really great place to start getting inspiration. So if you're doing like an email app or something, you can type in email, and you'll have a huge number of different styles of like email things you can start doing it for. So maybe if you're doing like a paid newsletter, something like this could kind of work. Or if you're doing something that is like an email kind of app, you could do something that's like has settings in here. So yeah, you kind of really see you can use Noun Project as a really interesting kind of inspiration piece, and then that paired with Google Fonts, which is like a great resource, and finding Dribble really allows you to kind of hit those 3 marks around like a logo mark, kind of really nice font choice, and then a color palette. And you can go from kind of having no logo to a complete custom one in a matter of minutes. So yeah, hopefully that will help you out kind of creating a logo. If you have any questions specifically, do just reach out to me on Twitter. The link to my Twitter will be below. It's Robert J. Bai, and I'll be happy to help. But yeah, I really hope this helps you get to a nice kind of a logo that really kind of feels aligned with what you're trying to build, and will really kind of help you create a brand that you really love and that you want to share with people. So yeah, thanks for being part of this, and really hope you got enough value from this, and do just let me know if you have any questions as well. Thanks.